Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and today we're going to have a look at the GFS, the GEM, the ECMWF with the ECMWF ensembles and GFS ensembles. We're really looking at the first week of February now for the next spell of potentially quite cold weather, and we're going to have a look at what the models are showing this morning for the chances of that. So we'll first run for the GFS, which has been quite bullish with its building up of Scandinavian high in the longer term. A lot of the runs in the last couple of days towards sort of the 300-hour beyond has built up quite a significant Scandinavian high, and some of the model runs have gone for a big sort of beast from the east. We'll see if the GFS is showing that right now and see what sort of support it has with the ensembles and whether ECMWF or the GM are hinting at that towards their longer range at day 10. So if we run through, we're currently in quite a mild phase of weather, still quite cold in the north. We've still got a bit of blocking over Iceland, which is allowing colder air just to seep into northern Scotland. However, further south, it's pretty mild with quite high temperatures, maybe low teens, maybe like 13, 14 degrees in the south during this week. Come this weekend, however, this area of low pressure will dive further southwards and could bring a bit of snow on its leading edge, especially to northern areas. Again, that's one to watch further later in the week. Northern areas will see some snow this week, quite significant snow over the hills. Again, it's only really over major elevation, so most populated areas, significant populated areas, will not be seeing widespread snowfalls really over the hills where it's quite common to see snow this time of year. Towards the weekend, though, we could see more widespread snow to further lowland areas, pretty much anywhere really. Could see a bit of snow maybe on Sunday as the upper airs do cool down. This GFS run doesn't pull the cold air quite as far south as other ensemble members and models are going for, but it's looking definitely at northern and potentially northeastern areas, and maybe even eastern areas as well. Could be seeing some colder conditions, overnight frost with the potential for wintry showers. Beyond that, areas of low pressure running off the Atlantic, and we sort of go back into a sort of a milder phase. Now, it's quite uncertain at this point, as some members of the GFS ensembles and some other model runs recently have shown higher pressure building and blocking and stalling these areas of low pressure, potentially maintaining a colder trend. However, it doesn't look like at the moment that's going to be happening. However, as we head towards day 10, that's when high pressure starts to get going. We start to pull in a bit of an easterly wind. Now, it's not a proper cold easterly wind, but it's pretty chilly, especially with quite a cold continent this time of year. However, as we run through this time frame, you see this continual trend of this Scandinavian high building. It's not particularly significant so far in this GFS run, but it's still there, providing potential for quite cold conditions to come back in if we do swing in an easterly wind. It's quite cold anyway at the moment on this GFS run, but if we did maintain that high pressure and build it in a little bit more, we would be opening the floodgates to very cold air, and we do have a lot of cold air to our northeast at this point in early February. Beyond that, that low dives to the south, and we start to bring the winds in from sort of a southeast direction. Now, it's going to bring in milder air. However, as this moves to the south, we will start to tap in to that bitterly cold air to our northeast, and towards the end of the run we are tapping into that quite cold air, and we're bringing in quite a brisk and cold easterly wind. However, the high pressure never really gets properly going, so we don't bring a long fetched easterly wind, bringing these very cold conditions from Siberia and Svalbard. However, again, it's quite uncertain in the longer range, but again, it's a good trend to see that GFS is continuing building those heights of Scandinavia and bringing in easterly winds in its longer term. Now, if we have a look at the GEM, you can see very similar for the next couple of days, really. As we head towards the weekend, high pressure builds towards the north, and we do pull in quite a brisk easterly wind, and colder air does sort of trend in across the country. It will get swept away, though. Potential for a snow event potentially on Monday as this weather front runs into cold air, but it does look like it will largely push that cold air away, so it'll be transient, turning to rain quite readily. over lowland areas. However, the Siberian, the Scandinavian high up to Svalbard is getting very strong on this current GEM run, and we do start to pull in an easterly wind towards day 10 with it retrogressing to a sort of Greenland high. And we've got quite cold air to our northeast. If that reinforced itself, we could be going into quite a prolonged cold spell with this GEM run. So again, GEM showing colder trends towards the end, so sort of looking at 5th, 6th of February, which we've sort of highlighted over the last couple days as potentially the time where the models are looking at a potential cold spell. How long it is and how long it is and how severe it is still quite uncertain at the moment, but it's looking like there is a decent chance that we could see some colder conditions come back. Lastly, we'll have a look at the ECMWF. As you see, a lot of non-blocking, but it's still pulling quite a southwesterly wind. Brief area of high pressure. So it's looking like we are going to be pulling in a slight easterly wind on Sunday, but nothing more than that. And as we head towards the longer term, high pressure starts to get going over Scandinavia. However, we maintain sort of a westerly flow with still cold air across the eastern part of the country. But it depends really. It can go two ways here. This high pressure can maintain strength and reinforce an easterly wind, or this low can dive through and provide a milder air. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if that low did slide through. However, with higher pressure building in behind it, it could reinforce the Scandinavian high. And if we ran this on another couple of days, we would start to pull in quite a cold easterly wind. So all models are sort of showing that this build of pressure, this build up of pressure to our north, especially towards Scandinavia, Svalbard, perhaps towards Greenland, always towards sort of day 10 and beyond. That's very interesting, and it is looking like it's being backed up by the ensembles, and we'll look at the ensembles now. So if we have a look at the ECMWF ensembles from the Icelandic Met Office, you can see a very complicated pattern at the moment with high pressure, northern blocking. However, it's sort of quite west-based, so it's not really blocking out the low pressure coming off the Atlantic. It's pushing the jet stream further south, so northern areas sort of stay quite cold, but especially further south, it maintains sort of westerly flow with quite mild conditions, but it could very quickly change with cold air not too far from our north and our northeast. As we run through, the pressure maintains to our north, but we maintain sort of a westerly flow. As we get towards early February, very similar patterns, but then high pressure starts to get going towards our north, and we'll just stop on the 7th, and you can see 37%, including control run, are going for low pressure over top of the country, so potentially bringing in some milder air, but then there's a lot of blocking to our north, so it could be sort of transient, trying to bring in a northeasterly or northerly wind. 31.4% are going for a big blocking area of high pressure and a brisk easterly wind coming from Scandinavia, so that would be bringing in quite cold conditions. And another 31.4% is got low pressure to our north, blocking to our north, further to its north as well, and it's sort of in between weather patterns, potentially providing a southwesterly wind, but very quickly could change to a sort of a northerly or easterly wind if this low dived further southeast. So interesting, very different pattern, very different outcomes for a similar sort of pattern towards day 10. Beyond that, they all trend high pressure to our north, and if you have a look at the main two main two sort of clusters, are all showing easterly winds. This main cluster is more low pressure dominant, so perhaps maybe a bit milder further southwards, but definitely further northwards, tapping into very cold air with mid-Atlantic ridge heading up towards Greenland and towards Iceland and Scandinavia, then a proper Scandinavian high with a bitterly cold easterly wind, so that would be providing quite cold conditions, maybe even beast from the east-like conditions. And then 16 ensemble members showing a more tame easterly, but perhaps more southwesterly further north. So similar to a pattern we've got now. We've got blocking to our north, quite cold in the north of the country, but maybe perhaps a bit milder towards the end. And if we run right towards the end of the run, 11th of February, you can see the main cluster, 37% are showing easterly winds with a big blocking Scandinavian high, basically cold easterly winds that will be producing 16 ensemble members are providing even bigger block of high pressure, again providing bitterly cold easterly winds, big Scandinavian high, and then another 31% or 16 ensemble members are showing a big area of high pressure, however, low pressure is trying to push that away, and we are looking perhaps westerly with that, although it could very quickly change to a more cold and blocked pattern. Lastly, we'll look at the GFS ensembles. The 6 o'clock run hasn't fully updated yet, as I'm recording this at about midday, so there's another 10 or 15 minutes until it's fully updates, but you can see generally around average conditions, fluctuating above and below average. So this week a little bit above, so we could see maybe 12-13 degrees in London. By the weekend, a lot colder, so maybe only highs of 3 or 4 degrees with overnight frost, and then it rises up a little bit. And then beyond that, very uncertain. It looks like it's trending a lot colder, and towards 5th, 6th of February, we have a lot of ensemble members going very, very cold indeed. Bitterly cold ensemble members. The average gets down to -5, but there's about 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 ensemble members getting to -7, -8 and below. Even one getting down to potentially -15 with a proper beast from the east on that ensemble member. It does trend drier, not very dry, but drier. So that's perhaps hints of higher pressure. But again, there are still, right at the end of the run, some ensemble members going a lot milder. Again, these are outliers, and the average staying a little bit below 30-year mean. But again, it could just show you that there's still a chance we turn southwesterly in this sort of colder spell around the 5th or 6th, which is not nailed on at the moment. Could just be a brief spell. Again, it's very difficult to tell at the moment. Quite long range, but all the indicators are there that we could be setting up quite a cold spell or cold snap towards the early parts of February. Very interesting condition we're seeing at the moment. Still got a lot of blocking around, so it's very likely that we could be seeing a cold spell. Just really gotta wait and see. Really, ensemble members are quite encouraging, especially the ECMWF ones. Even some of them are going milder. Their patterns are not particularly different to the cold ensemble members, with just a slight change in orientation of the high and low pressure, and they could be bringing in much colder conditions. So very interesting setup, and I'd say the next potential widespread cold spell could be early February, and this is really one to watch at the moment. I suspect it could be resolved within the next maybe 3 or 4 days as we head to early February, late January. So by this weekend we could start to see what sort of weather pattern we're looking, whether it will definitely go cold, and then we're looking at how prolonged it will be, and whether it will be a sort of a beast from the east pattern or sort of a transient cold spell, kind of like what we had this weekend, where we had a northerly wind, very cold air for a good 2 or 3 days before it warmed up, but within that we saw significant snowfall around. So it could be something like that, or it could be a little bit more prolonged. So it's just really one to watch. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.